Good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming.
By the start of August 1914, it was dawning on the British that a major war was about to break out on mainland Europe. Public opinion, and crucially the cabinet, was deeply divided on whether to intervene or to stay out. What swung Britain towards war was the German ultimatum to Belgium demanding free passage for German troops on their way to attack France. The invasion of Belgium made sense militarily for Germany, but politically it was a disaster. Belgian neutrality had been guaranteed by the powers, including Germany itself and, significantly, Britain. On the 3rd of August, Belgium announced that it would resist the German advance, and the Belgian king appealed to George V for support. That morning in the cabinet, there was finally a majority for intervention. And when the Foreign Secretary, Edward Grey, spoke in the House of Commons about Britain's obligations of honour to come to the defence of Belgium and France, it was clear that he had the support of an overwhelming majority. Even so, the formalities had to be observed and the necessary paperwork prepared. On the 4th of August, clerks in the Foreign Office prepared the telegrams that were to go to every British diplomatic post abroad to let them know that the Empire was at war.
Why the poppies? Send and Ripley History Society were invited to put together a display in the little kiosk to commemorate the outbreak of World War I. We hope that by adding the poppies outside the kiosk it will draw attention to the display. It's intended not only to honour the 21 men who gave their lives in the conflict, but to remind us that many more served and were wounded and traumatised by the war. Sen Parish Magazine in February 1918 recorded that 275 men were serving for the Sen. Those who were left behind should also not be forgotten. We hope that a fuller picture of the war will be reflected in our slightly bigger exhibition in the museum, which is entitled Lest We Forget.
Private Frederick Barnes of the South Staffordshire Regiment lived at Buckingham Cottage, Cartbridge. He was killed in action on the Somme in France on the 22nd of September 1918. He was 24 years old.
William Garnett of the 1st Queen's Regiment lived in Tannery Lane. He was killed in action in France on the 17th of October 1915.
Private Arthur Brackley of the 1st Queen's Regiment lived at Prue's Cottages. He was killed in action in France on the 29th of July 1918. He was 24 years old.
Sergeant William Collins of the 7th Queen's Regiment lived at the stables Sennecolm. He was killed in action on the Somme in France on the 19th of September 1918. He was 33 years old and had a wife and son aged 3 months.
Private Herbert Walls of 1st Queen's Regiment lived at number 2 Carlovigas, Sandy Lane. He was killed in action in France on the 25th of September 1915. He was 21 years old.
Edward Wapshot was a first-class boy telegraphist, and he lived at Prue's Cottages. He was killed at sea when HMS Invincible was sunk on the 31st of May 1916. He was 17 years old, and one of the youngest serving men for Somme.
Driver Sidney Wright of the Army Service Corps lived at Highlands Farm Cottage, Sen Marsh. He died from appendicitis on the 19th of October 1941 while serving in France. He was 24 years old and had a wife and young son.
Dulce et Decorum Est by Wilfred Owen. Bent double like old beggars under sacks, knock-kneed, coughing like hags, we cursed through sludge till on the haunting flares we turned our backs and towards our distant rest began to trudge. Men marched asleep. Many had lost their boots, but limped on, bloodshot. All went lame, all blind, drunk with fatigue, deaf even to the hoots of tired, outstripped 5-9s that dropped behind. Gas, gas, quick boys! An ecstasy of fumbling, fitting the clumsy helmets just in time, but someone still was yelling out and stumbling and floundering like a man in fire or lime. Dim through the misty panes and thick green light, as under a sea of green I saw him drowning. In all my dreams before my helpless sight, he plunges at me, guttering, choking, drowning. If in some smothered dreams you too could pace behind the wagon that we flung him in, and watch his white eyes writhing in his face, his hanging face like a devil's sick of sin, if you could hear with every jolt the blood come gargling from the froth-corrupted lungs, obscene as cancer, bitter as the cud of vile, incurable sores on innocent tongues, my friend, you would not yell with such high zest to children ardent for some desperate glory, dulce et decorum est pro patria mori, 'tis sweet and fitting to die for your country.
The reason we have Robert Skene last was a sad fact that he was the first fatality in the world of World War I, and he came from Sen. He was 23 and he lived at Broadmead House, Cartbridge. Sen Parish magazine recorded his death as follows. The death of Lieutenant Robert Skene on August the 12th, 1914 came as a great shock to us all. He had learnt his work at the Bristol School of Aviation at Brooklands and rapidly became well known for his skill and daring. On the outbreak of war, he immediately volunteered and was accepted for active service. He was attached to No. 3 Squadron, Royal Flying Corps. The accident happened at Netheravon on Salisbury Plain, and Mr. Skene, Lieutenant Skene, and his mechanic were killed instantly. They described him as absolutely without fear. He gave his life for his country as truly as though he had died on the field of battle. The Western Front Association are marking the fact that he was the first casualty of the war with a service in Sen Churchyard at his graveside at 12 o'clock on Tuesday, August the 12th.
In Flanders fields the poppies blow, between the crosses row on row, that mark our place, and in the sky the lark still bravely singing fly, scarce heard amid the guns below. We are the dead, short days ago, we lived, felt dawn, saw sunsets glow, loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders fields. Take up our quarrel with the foe, to you from failing hands we throw the torch. Be yours to hold it high. If you break faith with us who die, we shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders fields.
This was the war that was meant to end all wars, but it didn't. So while we sing our closing song, the words of which are on your programmes, we would ask you all please to think of those children, women and men who woke up this morning in conflict areas all over the world and who may not still be alive by the end of today.
Where have all the young men gone? Long time passing. Where have all the young men gone? Long time ago. Where have all the young men gone? Gone to soldiers everyone. When will they ever learn? When will they ever learn? Where have all the soldiers gone? Long time passing. Where have all the soldiers gone? Long time ago. Where have all the soldiers gone? Gone to graveyards, everyone. When will they ever learn? When will they ever learn? Where have all the graveyards gone? Long time passing. Where have all the graveyards gone? Long time ago. Where have all the graveyards gone? Covered in flowers, everyone. When will they ever learn? When will they ever learn? Where have all the flowers gone? Long time passing. Where have all the flowers gone? Long time ago. Where have all the flowers gone? To young soldiers, everyone. When will they ever learn?